On February 7, 1941, Albert Einstein composed a short letter directed to Wilhelm Reich, where a redaction of his and an assistant's findings in regards to the experiment conducted by himself involving the Orgone Accumulator was offered. The letter disproves the existence of the orgone, or life energy, on the basis of an interpretation offered by his then-assistant, Leopold Infeld, a scientist expelled from Canada due to his ties to the Communist Party in a period of time in history where the fundamental freedoms of humanity were in the midst of a ferocious battleground involving a war of world proportions.
On the one hand, both fascist and communist forces allied as a single front in order to impose their version of reality over the masses of people under their yoke, and on the other hand, the United States and Canada, a melting pot of all nations with the prospect of freedom and dignity, saw their soil receiving the tired, the oppressed, the poor from a world shaken by tyranny. As such, any suspicion of communist or fascist ties to the old world was heavily scrutinized and ejected, with a one-way ticket back to their place of origin, issued by the authorities to those over whom suspicions of communist or fascist affiliations were confirmed. Canada executed its due diligence in regards to Leopold Infeld, a communist agent who was later to become a founding father of the Soviets' Joint Instintute for nuclear research. He found refuge down south, in the United States, where a large network of comrades and fellow travelers welcomed him. This presentation will not go into the details of the problem of Einstein and his assistant Leopold Infeld's association to the communist regime infiltrated in the United States. The FBI files on this subject concluded the investigation once he died, with no clear verdict. Facts revealed in time, however, hold the last word. This is a presentation of the events that took place in 1941 when Wilhelm Reich demonstrated the existence of the life energy's radiation as a healing and advancing power to be placed at the service of human evolution to Albert Einstein, in the hope that his world status would ignite a universal acknowledgement and hence application of this power, advancing human evolution in accordance to lawful cosmic laws. This acknowledgement, however, proved the theory of relativity to be but a stepping stone into a higher universal law where creation and not entropy takes over.
We scientists who released this immense power have overwhelming responsibility in this world life and death struggle to harness atom. We ask your help in this fateful moment as sign that we scientists do not stand alone.
I agree.
A year before Wilhelm Reich reached out to Einstein in order to demonstrate the existence of the life energy, the latter, holding what appears to resemble the agency of a shadow, said the words, "I agree," in the presence of Leo Szilard, who awkwardly leans forward towards Einstein as this one is about to pronounce these two words, to a third man who passed him some papers and a microphone, while the whole scene was being recorded. He agreed to propose the urgent development and use of nuclear energy for war purposes to the President of the nation, F.D. Roosevelt, who duly obliged. The whole spectacle appears to be recorded as a testament to be witnessed by future generations. This presentation will expose the suppressed side of the same history where the inception, discovery, and presentation of a power carrying healing and evolutive igniting forces to a living process on Earth under attack was presented to the most powerful men on Earth, the voice of whom was Albert Einstein, the scientist appointed to be the representative of science.
After demonstrating the existence of a heretofore unknown force present everywhere, made thermally tangible by means of the Orgone Accumulator, to Einstein at his home in Princeton, Wilhelm Reich returned to his laboratory and home in New York, awaiting Einstein's observations as he was to replicate the experiment himself. The experiment, witnessed firsthand by Einstein, consisted in placing a thermometer on top of the accumulator in such a way that the mercury tip was located within the apparatus, while the rest of the thermometer would be exposed upright outside the apparatus. A second control thermometer would be placed outside of the accumulator at a certain distance to ensure that neither the radiation from the accumulator nor that emanating from the walls or any other object would interfere with the reading. As such, it was placed suspended freely in the air. According to contemporary physical laws, no temperature difference, or only negligible, was to be registered between both thermometers, in line with Einstein's theory of relativity.
However, an increase in temperature was, indeed, registered by the thermometer placed above the accumulator, as the radiation emitted from concentrated orgone, or life energy, transformed itself into heat, resulting from the stoppage of the kinetic energy generated as it became trapped, as it were, within the accumulator. The details of how the Orgone Accumulator achieves the deed of attracting and retaining the radiation emitted from the orgone or life energy is explained in Wilhelm Reich's book, The Cancer Biopathy. Upon witnessing this fact, Einstein gasped and exclaimed that this would be a bomb in physics should he be able to replicate the experiment by himself. He also expressed his will to help Wilhelm Reich in this tremendous deed, making this new discovery universally known to everyone.
The implications for humanity should Einstein have taken over the further development and application of the orgone or life force's radiation's power in his position of influence. Nobody, not at the time these events took place, nor in the present time and age, was or is capable to understand. Only Wilhelm Reich did. And perhaps Einstein, in a moment of given clarity, as he witnessed the mist-like undulating movement of the orgone's radiation by means of the orgonoscope, a device that facilitated the observation of the phenomena built by Wilhelm Reich.
Dear Dr. Reich, I have now investigated your apparatus, but I have limited myself to the temperature phenomenon, because I was not able to exclude subjective impressions with regard to the light manifestations.
Two demonstrations took place at Einstein's place in Princeton in his presence by Wilhelm Reich. One was the temperature increase from no known source resulting from concentrated orgone or life energy's radiation within the accumulator, registered at the top of the apparatus by a control thermometer, and the second one involved the visualization of this same concentrated energy by means of a device called orgonoscope, capable to make visible the undulating mist-like formation in complete darkness. This visualization also included the use of a magnifier to discard any subjective element. The image of the mist-like undulation would appear, accordingly, enlarged as observed through the magnifying glass. This last demonstration is the one that made Einstein gasp, as recorded from the only other witness present, Wilhelm Reich. However, Einstein could not, upon replicating the same process by himself, exclude his own subjective impressions regarding the visualization,
Therefore, he discarded it.
In the beginning, I made enough readings without any changes in your arrangements. The box thermometer showed regularly a temperature of about 0.3 to 0.4 degrees higher than the one suspended freely. One of my assistants now drew my attention to the fact that in rooms, as they are at our disposal, the temperature on the floor is always lower than the one on the ceiling. If now there is a permanent horizontal plate, the underside of this plate would communicate through convection more with the floor, while the top side would communicate more with the ceiling. In fact, I found that on the underside of the table, in the average, the temperature was about 0.6 degrees lower than on the top side. This fact has finally been established as the deciding one, as you will see from the following. I started by taking the metal box out of the enclosure with the windows, put it directly on the table, and fix the thermometer on the top side of the box by putting it in the now somewhat larger hole in which the earthenware pipe was before, using a folded newspaper to make the thermometer stick.
The experiment, whereas a temperature increase was confirmed to be generated from no known source, was conducted in the presence of Einstein under very clear and precise guidelines. These guidelines were based on the law that declares the following premise. Organic material attracts orgone, or life energy's radiation, while inorganic material reflects it. By constructing the accumulator, ensuring that the outer layer was composed of organic material and the inner enclosure built of metal, the radiation from the orgone energy would be attracted and retained within the apparatus. This would cause a stoppage of kinetic energy once the radiation reached the metal inner part of the accumulator, that would transform into heat when it found no way out of the enclosure. This heat would then be registered by the control thermometer placed at the top of the apparatus. Therefore, very precise laws were observed in the construction of the accumulator and in the execution of the experiment. By dismantling the Orgone Accumulator in order to find the source of heat, Einstein invalidated, corrupted, and nullified the methodical laws governing the process that ensured the living element imbued within the atmosphere attracted and retained within the accumulator from manifesting its presence within the tangible realm, thus reachable to physical senses. It is an act of treason against truth to desecrate the medium by which the source of a demonstrable fact is presented and deny the existence of such fact.
The result, gained by many experiences, the temperature difference disappeared, or was in any case not more than plus minus 0.1 degree. This gives the impression of a powerful affirmation. If you leave off the windows, the effect disappears. But I was not satisfied with this. The metal was now in better contact with the tabletop, which was cooled from below. To eliminate this influence, I now proceeded to put the metal box, again without its enclosure, not directly on the table, but I put some of your folded blue packing paper between the tabletop and the box. Thereupon, the original effect reappeared immediately and regularly. The temperature on the box was 0.3 to 0.4 degrees higher than that on the freely suspended thermometer.
Durch diese Experimente, I regard the matter as completely solved. The temperature difference has nothing to do with the windows and the metal box, but is solely due to the horizontal tabletop. Signed, A. Einstein. The contents of this letter not only bear no relationship to the experiment in question,
as executed in the lawful process in which it was designed to do so, but it is an amalgamation of a myriad of disconnected, short, and incoherent thought processes, allowing for not a single point of reference by which a thread of coherence or sense could be made out of it. At the time this scientist was flourishing in the land that saw the inception of the atomic bomb, instigated by himself, his drug addiction, among other deeper implications that should have disqualified him from even entering the United States, was kept under a ferocious veil of secrecy. It is only now, in the age of disclosed records and clarity, that the truth is available, ready to be disclosed to all who search for it.
After the initial shock of reading this incongruent notice, having witnessed Einstein's initial and real, genuine surprise response at the witnessing of the orgon's radiation, both visual and thermally, Wilhelm Reich replied with a 43-page scientific document where a painfully detailed set of multiple variations of the same experiment explanations is offered, proving the interpretation of Leopold Infeld's denial of the existence of the life energy's radiation invalid, incorrect, false, for in the same experimental process undertaken outdoors, any hypothetical heat convection from floor to ceiling that could influence the result of the temperature increase was discarded in a stroke. Wilhelm Reich's response to Einstein never saw a reply from the latter. The highlights of this response will be presented in a following chapter, where the exposition of Einstein's complete incoherent letter is offered, a section of the letter that has not been translated in the official publication of the Einstein Affair here being covered, but that Eva Reich did translate to make this information universally available.